if I had $1 for every person that's told me I have to write a book about the things that happen on safari and the stories that take place at safari lodges, I'd probably be able to buy my own lodge. Here's one of those stories. So I'm going to take you back to 2005, 2006. At the time, I was working in the Madikwe Game Reserve managing a lodge. It was a private villa lodge at the time. So what that means is you would book the entire lodge. There was 5 rooms, so 10 people max, and you would book the entire lodge for yourself. Whether you were 2 people or 10, you could only book the lodge as an exclusive use property. So this is 2005-06. It's a very, very long time ago. And we got a group booking, 10 people, and this was somewhere in Russia. I can't remember, Russian clients at the time. And the booking sheet came through. Now, this is before Google and Instagram, so you couldn't stalk people to know who you're dealing with, yeah? So we see the names, and we speak to the agent all on email, and they say no. So it's the husband who's an expat from Britain. He's moved to Russia. He's into farming or something. His wife, her mother, so 3 adults, and then 7 children from 14 down. Okay, so that's the brief we get. Anyway, so we prep for this, you do the bookings, and you get everything ready to go. And then I think a day before, they were going to be there for 5 nights. The day before they arrived, we get a mail from the agent saying, no, the father can't come anymore, he's got business. Which means we're now expecting 9 people. The wife, let's call her Nina, can't remember, but let's call her Nina. The grandmother, the babushka, and then the 7 kids from 14 down. And the brief was that the father can't come for the first 4 nights. He'll come for the last night and then fly out with the group. Cool, not a problem. We're in hospitality. This is what we do. Hey. So the day arrives. The lodge is ready. Now, this is remembering here. This is a 5-star lodge. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, seated, plated, everything. It's one of those where you sit down and there's like 3 or 4 forks and knives everywhere. It's a proper lodge. Right? Villa concept, high end at the time. So Dynamosi and myself, we drive to the airstrip to go and fetch the people. I've got the game viewer and he's got the bakkie or the pickup truck to put all the luggage in. So we're waiting at the airstrip. The first airplane arrives. We had a King Air for the adults and for some of the kids, and then a small, I think Cessna 4-seater. So anyway, the King Air lands. We walk up. And as these people come down the little stairs, they just hand us airsick bags. So now you're standing with like 4 bags. Not a great start. Anyway, we put that aside. We very quickly figure out that of the 9 people we have there now, so this is the mom, the grandmother, and 7 kids, 14 years and under. Only the 14-year-old speaks English to round about, let's be liberal here, about a 5 out of 10. Nobody else speaks English. Anyway, so I get them on the vehicle, and we drive back to the lodge. Dynamosi, my tracker's eyes are this big. I was also there. Anyway, so we get back to the lodge. Now, total chaos ensues. Like, when these kids get off the vehicle, it's like opening the gates of hell, and they're just running and shouting and screaming. They don't understand English except for the one boy who's 14. And let's be honest, a 14-year-old boy ain't going to push down discipline on his brothers and sisters. So anyway, mayhem. So as I arrive back, immediately, I call a staff meeting. I say to the staff, listen, we just need to bite down and get through this because this is going to be interesting. Anyway, so now with this English situation, the grandmother doesn't speak English. The mom doesn't speak English. Only the 14-year-old kind of speaks English. So I'm waiting for the dad to come on the last day. So now I revert to universal English, which is you and me, we eat at 2 o'clock. That's where we're going with this thing now. So long story short, we get them to their rooms, and they're taking over the lodge, right? So they're fucking everywhere. So 2 o'clock comes, and we get them to the lunch table. And it's like there's this shift in energy because from chaos, and I'm talking chaos, right? From chaos, they all now stand on the corners of the table and they do like some prayer thing in their native language, Russian, whatever they were. My staff are finished. They don't know what to look at. Anyway, We get through dinner, I think, or through lunch. I think we only broke, and I'm not even kidding, 2 plates and maybe 3 glasses. So it's a good start. Now, back to the rooms. Okay, international English. 4 o'clock, we go look for animals. Right, that's where we're at with this whole thing. So I get the game drive vehicle. I'm driving. I'm a guide in these days, remember? So I drive around the turning circle. We park the vehicle. Dynamosi and myself, we're ready. These people start arriving. Now, I can't make this up. So Nina, who's the mom, she arrives. I've never seen this much animal print on one person before. If I recall, zebra print tights, yeah, then like a black vest type tank top type thing, then like a puffy jacket which is like a leopard / jaguar print, and then she's got a beret, like army beret, which is I think like giraffe or something. So Dynamo's my tracker sitting in front of the car where they sit. He looks around at me. I'm just like, dude, just let it go. This is what we're in for. Anyway, so they get on the car, mayhem. This 14-year-old who can speak English, he sits next to me. So he's in the passenger seat. But as I turn and I look at him, I'm not making this up. He's got like a shell jacket on, but it looks like it's from some chemical warfare war zone from the 1960s, 70s, with a zip with a mesh over the face. Right? So behind me on the vehicle is this animal print lady. I've got this 1970s fallout from a war with his zipped chemical warfare jacket. And I'm like, what the hell? Anyway, so I start talking to this kid. He's about 4 or 5 out of 10, right? English. So I figure out that he got his jacket from a church camp that he went to where they taught him how to throw knives. Right. Anyway, okay, I'm done with that conversation. Let's move on. This is day one. So we go on a game drive. And from the drive that I took them from the airstrip to the lodge and me just driving down the driveway of the lodge, I recognize the fact that I cannot take this group of people into sightings with other lodges' vehicles. I cannot do it. So literally now I'm driving. I hear on the radio as we come out, there's a lion sighting 3 minutes down the road. I say to Dynamos in Shangaan, we're not going there. We're turning away from this. So I take them away from the sightings. Literally, I would hear there's a lion sighting. I drive the other direction. It's mayhem, fighting and shouting and screaming. Anyway, as we drive away from all the other vehicles, as luck would have it, leopard in a tree next to the road. So we stop, and I'm like, hey, shush. And they look at it and they carry on. So I open a guidebook and I say, leopard there. So they look for 5 seconds and then they just carry on. They don't give a shit, right? So anyway, I take a couple of photos. We do our thing. I call on the radio. I found this thing, but I'm leaving it an open sighting. I move on. I take them away from this. They don't care. It's mayhem. Now, drink stop time arrives, sundowners, which normally is quite a civilized affair. It's lovely, normally. So with this being a high-end exclusive lodge, everything's in there. It's a full bar service. We've got everything. We've got canapes. It's just beautiful. Sausages and things. Anyway, so Dynamos puts the table out. I bring the bag with the food. And it's like a bunch of hyenas. These kids are around me like wanting to get into this. And I'm like, hey, the adults first. Stop it. Nothing. And the mom and the grandmother does nothing. Anyway, so I put these snacks on the table. It's like hyenas on a carcass. Like, they're just eating. Then I bring, the Dynamos brings the box with all the drinks and stuff. So it's covered with ice, right? So it's a full box. Put it down. The kids pick up the ice and they start throwing each other with it. Now, I'm not talking about I'm throwing you like this. They get a handful and they fetch it from back here and they just tossing the shit out of each other with this ice. I'm just like, whoa, man, I can't. So I'm trying to engage with the adults and say, listen, here is a snack. And the grandmother starts doing this to me. All right? Thumbs up with this. And I'm like, okay, cool. So anyway, we get through this drink stop. I get them back in the car. We drive them back to the lodge. It's literally chaos all the time. The next morning, same thing. You bring coffee out, they're throwing each other with thermoses and stuff. It's crazy. I don't know what was said between them, but the next afternoon at drink stop, they all I don't know if there was a conversation. I don't speak Russian. And the kids would all go, they grab like 2 cans of Coke or Sprite or whatever it is, stick it in their pockets, grab another one, and then go and drink it on their own. I'm like, these. And all the grandmother doing is this to me all the time. So this is 4 nights with this circus, and then the dad was going to arrive on the last night. So anyway, things are breaking. They're breaking mirrors. They're dropping glasses. It's just, we just keep a running tally. In the office, we're just keeping a running list of breakages. It's just mayhem. We strip down the lunch and dinner tables to nothing. Just like no glasses, no nothing. And still they find things to break. It's crazy. Anyway, so we're getting closer now to the dad arriving. And I'm thinking that when he arrives, maybe there's some discipline. He's going to pull the shit together for me, and we're going to actually, I can have a conversation with someone and say, listen, can you shut that kid up because there's a lion here? Dad arrives, and I fetch him at the airstrip. I bring him to the lodge. And during high tea, it's like, oh, man, this is going to be exactly the same, if not worse. He's wrestling with them, shouting, then he's eating, then something drops. It's just like, you can't make this up. Anyway, we go on game drive. I'm desperate now to start seeing animals because for the last 5 days, I'm avoiding sightings, right? So anyway, Dad's on the car. It's just worse. So I just ignore it, switch off. And all I'm getting from the grandmother is this, from the babushka. So that afternoon, Dad's there now. So I chat to him a little bit, but then they engage in Russian. So I start doing this back to the grandmother. So she's doing this to me, and I'm doing that to her. And then she starts rapping off at me in Russian. Look, it might be some dialect, but I'm just say Russian. But she's talking. So I think, hey, I don't know what you're saying. Let me speak Afrikaans to you. So I'm doing this to her, speaking Afrikaans. She's doing this to me, speaking in Russian. And we're just having a great old time. In the meantime, in the background, the kids are killing each other with Coke tins and ice. And the dad and mom just don't seem to care. So this carries on. The next morning, the last game drive, we do this again. I find out from the dad that this is good, right? And this is good with spices on top, so it's even better. So in between this shit show that is the lodge at this stage, this babushka is having the best time of her life. Anyway, we get to the last morning drive. We go out. Again, I avoid all the sightings. We come back. They think it's amazing. They go and shower and clean up before I take them back to the airstrip. And at breakfast now, just before we leave, we're having a breakfast. I have to give them the invoice because in those days, it was fully inclusive, but certain premium brands you have to pay for. So the dad had some things, the mom had some wines. So let's say, and I'm going to just paraphrase the numbers, but let's say, for example, their bill came to 5,000 Rand. It was something like this, minuscule. We then looked at all the breakages that they had at the lodge. And that came to round about 25,000 Rand in those days, which was a lot of money back then. So I think I'm going to push this up to 40. So 40,000 breakages and other, and then 5,000 for the drinks. So I'm ready. I pushed it up because I'm going to negotiate with this guy now, right? Anyway, so I go and say, hey, here's your bill, please. We can sort this out. And he opens it. He says, okay, cool. Puts the credit card down. I said, do you want to maybe just have a look? No, it's fine. Just run it. Okay, I'll run it. So I run the card, we take the cash, take them to the airstrip. Now, in those days, because it was a private lodge, we had a father and son team flying for us, Jimmy and James. They were the 2 people who flew them in, and they only did exclusive flights for the lodge. So the King Air lands, and the Cessna lands. So the adults and the 3 youngest kids get on the King Air, the 7-seater, and the remaining kids get on the Cessna. So eventually, I mean, it's not even goodbye. It's like, do you remember the Tasmanian Devil, the cartoon? That thing that spins and goes zzz? It was like 7 of those together. Insanity. Anyway, so eventually, these people all get back on the aeroplanes and they take off and they're gone. And Dynamis, my track, and I just like, Now, as most of you know from the industry, there's normally gratuities for your local staff. Nothing. It just is what it is. Got a nice golden handshake and off you go. So anyway, we drive back to the lodge. I get back, I get to the office, and it's about 45-minute flight from Madikwe back to Johannesburg. Jimmy, the father who was flying the 4-seater, phones me and tells me this story. He says, halfway from Madikwe to Johannesburg, these kids popped the fire extinguisher inside the 4-seater aeroplane. Foam and whatever the case is. So he lands and he's obviously furious. The dad was in the other plane. So as they land, safely, thank goodness, he walks up to the dad, but he is livid. And he's like, what the fuck? Your kids did this. What are you going to do? And the father just looks at him and says, how much? It's just like... Anyway, so Jimmy loses his shit. He walks away and he phones me at the lodge. And that is probably not even the worst guest story that I have. But it was probably one of the most memorable because it was for 5 days. And that language barrier was just like... crazy times. Absolutely crazy times. There's this joke that goes around at some of the lodges that the lodge industry would be great if it wasn't for the guests. Now, on that particular trip, I agreed with it. But if I look at it now, and with, I think, hindsight, I mean, the agent booked them wrong. We didn't have the information we have today. If I had to go and find Google and see and whatever and engage with the clients, like we do here at Wild Eye, different story. But in those days, you just got the booking sheets and you serviced the client. So, yeah, it's fun and games. It's fun and games. Universal English, ice being thrown, all of this. Good times, man, good times. So, yeah, at some stage, we can dig into more of these stories. There's loads of them. The other story I thought about maybe telling you guys was about a spitting cobra and my eye, but let's leave that for a next time. Keep an eye open for the next story. I think Danielle's going to share it with us, so make sure you check out YouTube, check out the Wild Eye blog. But I'm going to leave you with just one more thing, and then we'll go from there. My name is Gerry. I'm from Wild Eye. Bye for now.